here. Hope you guys are having a good day. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that I came across yesterday, or 2 days ago actually, and it was along the lines of why social media is making us more susceptible to depression and to being depressed, and how to quit. So I was actually watching this interview on this show called Impact Theory, and the host was interviewing this guy named Cal Newport. I'll put the link in the description. One of the things that they talked about, and that I kind of want to talk about as well, is the concept of deep work. Because, here we're talking about self-development, and you can't talk about self-development without focus. So deep work is kind of another word for concentrated focus. So what I found interesting is that they pointed out that concentrated focus is not something that we as humans have a real long evolutionary history of. So it's relatively new. Everything kind of changed with the development of the written word. When things were written down, it kind of geared our focus to be sustained for extended periods of time, as opposed to constantly being locked in on what's going on in the outside world and observing, ready, and your attention is constantly moving essentially. But like I said, everything changed with the development of the written word. And what's very interesting about this ability to concentrate your focus, long concentrated focus, is that if you develop this ability, if you develop this skill, you have a huge competitive advantage because people are not doing that, especially with the advent of technology and the multiple divided attention tasks that technology is allowing us to do. If you're able to concentrate your focus, you have a huge competitive advantage. And this is why people that are successful in said arena, whatever the case may be that they're successful at, they are more successful because they allot times where their focus is concentrated on that activity, as opposed to someone who you might say is multitasking. So that brings me to my next point, which they also brought up, which is the concept of attention residue. And I thought this was very unique or interesting because I immediately had examples that I could draw off of when this would happen to me. So attention residue is essentially this: when you are doing one thing, something grabs your attention and you attend to this activity, then you come back here, and now your efficiency at this initial activity has decreased. Point in case for me, when let's say I'm typing something in on Google, I get a text or something like that, grabs my attention, I'll look, attend to this, and then I'll go back into my first initial activity and I'll type in something that was relative to this thing as opposed to this. So that residue is, you're bringing it over here. Now your efficiency at this initial task has gone down. So clearly, those who are able to concentrate their focus on the initial task for for extended periods of time tend to have a better competitive advantage at being successful in that arena. And what I also found interesting is the correlation between reading and meditation, because like any skill or ability, this thing of concentrated focus, it itself, like I said before, it doesn't have that much evolutionary history. So it's a skill. It's something that has to be worked out, exercised like a muscle. So I don't know how many of us meditate, how many of you meditate. I meditate, but for all practicality reasons, I know for multiple reasons people just don't make the time. So another way to stimulate that muscle and to grow it of concentrated focus is by reading. I thought that was so simple, and it made so much sense when when Cal brought up everything changed with the advent of the written word. And I'm thinking, like, Yes, of course. Obviously, like you're reading and your focus is concentrated for multiple periods of for extended periods of time, and reading is great once you're into it if you're able to focus long enough. Depending on the content, obviously, but that's a great practical thing that we can do to increase our focus, and it made me want to read even more. I got 2 books that I'm reading now that you know I want to finish them now even more, because I know that I'll get exercising, because I know that I'll exercise that ability and that skill, which is only going to serve me in the long run. So they also discussed that there were 2 distinctly negative things about social media. And they were called social snacking and social comparison. We all know social comparison. But social snacking is the basically the trade-off. It's an unfair trade-off that we do, where we give up kind of sacrificing our time and our energy to have conversations or share space with people in real time, our family, friends, and people that are close, and just people in general, those things that we need to thrive. We trade them off for these real kind of like low quality, fast internet connections, whether it's a conversation on Facebook or Instagram or something like that, and it's not a fair trade-off. And so we need the former to thrive, but a lot of us are giving that up for the latter. And another thing is social comparison. Like, we are not wired to be constantly bombarded by these carefully curated positive portrayals of people's lives. Like, we're not wired for that, and it's making us less happy. So what was proposed is the concept of digital minimalism to cure these things. So digital minimalism is basically, obviously we can't live, we're in a world now where technology is a part of our daily lives, and that's probably never going to change. It's just going to get more fine-tuned. So digital minimalism is a concept I believe that Cal came up with, where you use your social media, your technology, or whatever, but not at the exclusion of those things that are important, that mean stuff. Like, we should go out of our way and make that phone call, or sacrifice our time and go over that person's house and be that support or whatever they need. These things we need to be fulfilled. And it plays on to this concept that he brought up called eudaimonia. Eudaimonia is a concept that was coined by Aristotle, who he basically wanted to dive into the science of happiness philosophically. So what he was basically saying is that well-being is not an outcome or an end goal. It's basically the process of fulfilling or realizing your own true nature. Basically, actualizing and living your own virtuous potentials and your inherent nature. And that's straight off of the definition. So these things like social comparison and social snacking, they are kind of at odds with that. So digital minimalism is a great concept in that it allows us to live harmoniously and still progress with the technology and the science that's coming out, and things are just going to get more advanced. But that also means that these things are so fine-tuned to grab our attention that it's very important that we realize what's going on when we engage with them. And another interesting thing that they brought up was the fact that adolescent depression rates have skyrocketed in this generation and this generation, and they were trying to figure out why. And long story short, they basically came to the conclusion that it was social media that was bringing about this spike in depression because of those things like social snacking and social comparison. Because these things play on the psychological vulnerabilities that are associated with social approval and social connection. So this was brilliant when I heard Cal Newport say this on Impact Theory. He was like, if you give a 13-year-old brain that is already obsessed with those things, social comparison and social approval, something that like social media, like an Instagram or something like that, that literally is created to play off of that and take advantage of that, it has the potential to be very volatile. He said, not good, not good. So that brain is not ready for the Pandora's box that social media brings about. So that's all I really wanted to talk about today. If you guys got anything from this video, you know the deal. Be sure to share, like, comment, and subscribe. Remember these topics, these concepts, because they're important. They're important for us to know how to frame these things like social media in a way that benefits us, not in a way that's detrimental to us, because we deal with these things every day. So knowing how to navigate them is essential and very important. So I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, remember, the greater perspective can lead to a greater connection. Peace.